Okay. For today, we are going to go take a ride in the Prado. As you can see, I love this thing. Super small, but inside it feels big. So climb on in and let's check it out. Welcome to 1998. She starts right up every single time. Now, I've done a number of things to this interior wise. I've adjusted my lights for the dash lights, you know, the gauge lights. I've experimented with different colors. It's pretty easy to take them in and out. I could do a video on that as well. So 115,000 kilometers. The conversion to miles is somewhere right around 70. I don't know the conversion exactly, but super easy to work on. I mean, we still have the clock and everything there. You know, this clock is so cool. It just works. It's awesome. Love it. Now, I went with a Sony XAV 9500 head unit in here. It has wireless CarPlay. There's no connection to the steering system. This is, you know, there's no controls on the steering wheel. So I just do everything manually here. It's not a problem. Sounds amazing. I paired it with Kenwood mids and highs, the higher end Kenwood. I can't recall the exact brand. It did have this, you can kind of see with a little lighting here, this kind of mock wood stuff, and I had it on here, but the underside of this area was so nice and brand new that I just wanted to let this roll out and do this. I did fix the shifter, so all the Tacomas and 4Runners, they all have those shifter bushings in here, and you have to switch them out. They just deteriorate over time. The meter here is pretty cool. Basically, it shows you compass. You can look at things like altimeter, different heights, average speed. Keep in mind it is in kilometers. A timer, which then shows this cool little graphic, as you see, of the actual LandCruiser, which is cool. I mean, just from the JDM coolness factor alone, that's worth it. And then you've got kind of where you are from your tilt and pitch. But no, overall, man, it's a basic transportation type vehicle. I'm going to go ahead and put you guys back on my head here, so I apologize for moving you around a little bit so you can get a feel for what it's like to drive on the right hand side on these wonderful roads in my town. We're going to go out to the beach real quick, take a little ride. It's a very short ride, but I think you guys will enjoy it. So let's get into it. A lot of these Japanese cars have these backup systems in them, and it gives you this kind of wonderful sound that just tells you what's behind you. I've done pretty much everything you could do to this thing. I've done all the bushings, I've done the steering rack, I've changed the suspension. Originally when I got it, it was Old Man Emu, which was very harsh, especially with the short wheelbase, but I eventually went with Dobinson and the I believe it's IMS, if I'm not correct on that, I'm not sure. Yeah, it is IMS. Huge difference, made it a lot smoother, made it a lot more enjoyable. This guy's out walking a baby in the wind. Cool. Here you can see it's a very windy day here. We've got a front rolling in. The temperature is dropping dramatically. This is the bayou that I go out on when I go out on the boat. You guys will see that as well. So, you know, basically on these seaside Florida towns, I'm in a town called Tarpon Springs. It's a very slow little town. It's definitely expanded like everything else in the post-COVID era. We were pretty much wide open during that period of time, and the town kind of exploded. I'm not sure what this person's doing. And really kind of had a lot of people move from up north and out west here. Okay, come on, buddy. So there's a lot of people here that apparently don't know how to drive. So we've got that going for us. But, you know, it still maintains a lot of its small town vibe. We've got the second largest Greek community in this area, second only to Greece, and it brings a great culture. We've got the sponge docks down there, and it really is a nice place to live. Very, very chill. So typically I can take the golf cart on this road here and get to where I need to get to very quickly to this park. It's a little park called Fred Howard Park that is just a nice little spot. All of this area that I'm driving right now, this was affected all by Hurricane Helene. We had pretty substantial flooding. We basically, this person has no idea what they're doing, good luck. And there was, in our house alone, we had about 2.5, 3 foot of water, but a lot of homes here, anywhere where you see water, there was flooding. So there was a lot of that, and a lot of houses had 4 and 5 feet. Luckily our house is a little elevated and we live in the upstairs, so it didn't really affect us too much. So this is the main road into, if you're going to Tarpon Springs High School. I went to that high school back in the day, so it was a lot of fun. It was a great time to grow up back then. This was the 80s. Interesting fact, Tarpon High was once named the worst mascot by ESPN, so that's one thing we had going. So as you can see, driving on the right-hand side in you know, a left-hand drive vehicle, you can really see the difference. A lot of it's just frame of reference. Like when I'm driving, I'm actually looking at the right-hand side of the road. That's where I just naturally teach my eye to focus, because it helps me drive straight. Because if I'm focusing on the left hand, I don't know if it's like the placebo factor or what, where you just kind of fall into these patterns. I find I end up weaving more if I'm looking at the left side of the road. But if I focus my eye roughly on the white line, it just keeps me centered, nice and easy. I've had this truck now going on, it feels like 2 years, and I've gotten quite used to it. I do notice if I've been driving the Lexus more, it definitely takes a quick moment for me to reacclimate myself with the right-hand drive. So on the controls, the main difference with the right-hand drive is my windshield wipers are on this side and my turn signals are on this side. Seatbelt is right here. So every once in a while, making a turn signals, I've turned the wipers on. It's just part of it. Anybody who's driven a right-hand drive in the US, I'm sure you can relate, because it's just part of it. You're going to turn your windshield wipers on a lot, so you're going to want to make sure your blades are in good shape. So yeah, that's part of the game. But other than that, I don't really go to drive-throughs, and if I do, it can be quite comical. I think I was at a hotel once that required me to scan a badge, and I ended up taking this just for fun. It was a work trip, and you know, scanning a badge, then I don't have any capacity to do a right-hand drive vehicle. So what you'll see then is me running around trying to scan it and then hop back in and go, and it didn't work, and finally somebody had to come help me. So I just make sure I take the right cars. So this is the entrance to Fred Howard Park. This is another area that was impacted by a lot of floods. I don't think it came up as far as these houses, but I know as we get closer, some of these houses were affected, and definitely Fred Howard Park was impacted pretty significantly. But the Park Service has done a great job cleaning all this up. I have a friend that loves the sound of certain turn signals of cars, and he literally buys cars based on that. So it's kind of cool that, you know, this one has that old click click that you just don't hear anymore. It seems like it's more of a digital thing. But yeah, this is Fred Howard Park. Super cool little park, right real close to the house. This is where I typically take the dogs on the golf cart. But as you can see, this thing drives it drives like you would expect it if it was built today. Everything has been refreshed on it. There's literally, I don't know if anybody's driven old Tacomas, old 4Runners. When you get those older cars and the rubber is degraded, you definitely notice that kind of slop in the steering. I've gone through pretty much everything associated with the steering on this car, and it's tight. It's for that type of period of Toyota vehicles, it steers as tight as you could possibly imagine. Steering rack bushings, like I said, steering rack was sent over from, actually a guy in Pakistan found me one that I do some parts with. But it's so important, especially on these short wheelbase vehicles, to have your steering tight. It makes everything work better, because otherwise it gets downright dangerous, honestly. You got to really do that. And then you have the lower ball joints, which are a huge issue for these old Toyotas, and this is no exception. This shares a lot of the suspension components with the 3rd generation 4Runner, as well as it has some mix of 80 series, like the brakes are 80 series and 1st gen Sequoia. So this is Fred Howard Park. It is extremely windy out today. We do have a front coming in. You can see the kite surfers going at it. Just beautiful. Hopefully you guys can see them. And a lot of people just come out here to watch them go because it's such a cool thing. Just zipping along. Very cool. So you can hear the wind hopping. It is just moving out here. So you got a lot of windsurfers, kite surfers. I love this beach. I've been in this area for decades, and it's just such a little hidden gem. You know, if you don't know what's back here and you don't know what you're looking for, you are gonna miss it. And for that reason, I think it stays relatively uncrowded. I mean, you know, obviously in summer you're going to get a lot of people out here. You'll see this causeway lined with cars, but you know, this time of year when the weather's kind of chilly, you really appreciate having this gem just really a mile or two away from the house. It is definitely not boating weather, that's for sure. When there's rollers in here, this is normally very, very common here. This is very protective. You've got Anclote Island off in the distance, 3 Rooker bars out there, and then you'll come up here to Fred Howard as it sits, and you can really get a feel for it. This has been around, frankly, the early 1900s. Like, I think they built this sometime. I'd have to look at the exact date. I'll look it up and post it in the comments. Nice LS 430. But a lot of people love to come out here. You see tons of walkers every day. Tilly and Zoe love to come out here. They love to see all the birds and people and dogs and all that fun stuff. But we did our ride earlier today. But as you can see, this thing rides for what it is very smoothly. Is it smoothly comparable to what? Let's just say that. It is an off-road suspension. It's designed for some absorption, but I wouldn't say it is absolutely soft. Definitely not soft. Now you get in the Lexus and that's a whole different vibe. You're feeling that for sure, and you're loving it. That's all about comfort. It's like isolation. Whereas this is more of a, you know, you can tell pretty much every crack in the street. Interesting time for a picnic. Sand blowing everywhere, but hey, I'm not judging. So as you can see, not a good beach day. Definitely not. You can see that little fender mirror, which is really cool because I use it. Actually, I don't know if you can tell. If you can see, it has the you can maybe see it. I'm not sure if you guys can zoom in on that, but you can see that it has the line for the middle there, and I kind of use it to help me stay aligned, basically. I did it initially first. I'm trying this new head mount. I'm not sure. I hope the video is going to come out okay, so you guys can kind of get a good POV. But I'll try different mounts. If I have to, I'll just mount it right to the windshield. Now, for the exhaust on this truck, I think I ended up getting a resonator from, believe it or not, a Dodge Challenger, like RT. I went to an exhaust place and my factory OEM exhaust had just clogged up, basically. It wasn't working right. Ooh, that's a little hop. Nice jump. Good job, buddy. And he's like, I got this resonator, let's throw it on. And it sounds great. It's perfect. It's not droney. It gives me everything I need. I'm always fascinated by those guys. They're able to just get those things moving so fast. It's such a cool thing. But yeah, you have a little sound, but you know, on the highway, which, let's be honest, this thing is not much fun over 70, 75. It's a very, very relaxing drive. You don't want to be speeding in this thing. Emergency maneuvers over 80 would not be something I would want to experience. So, you know, you just get in the right-hand drive and cruise if you got to do a long distance. But typically I don't take this on long distances. It's my in-town kind of weekend fun car, as well as my occasional drive to work car as I go into Tampa. But man, I'm surprised at all the people out with all this wind, so that's kind of cool. But yeah, this park had, I would say, probably 7 to 9 foot of water in it. Killed a lot of the pine trees, as you can see. They are slowly getting around to getting this all squared away. They'll get it dialed back in. It was really beautiful before, though, because all these trees were basically full of foliage. So it had much more of a forest feel. But they do a good job here. They got the park open as quick as possible. I did go through and I think I did the radiator on this thing too. This thing just stays spot on. That's what I love about the old Toyotas. It's like 190 and it just stays there, whether it's, you know, 100 degrees out or, you know, 30 degrees out. It loves that 190 range, and it rarely goes over that, even in heavy traffic. But like I said, it's not a fast vehicle. It gets a lot of looks. Now, with the wrap on it, it gets a ton of looks. Like, people just see this thing and they're just like, what is that? I've been told it looks like a Montero, or I don't know, somebody called it a Suzuki Samurai. You don't see a lot of the short wheelbase. Now, there are some 4-doors running around, that's for sure. I've seen them, and I know some of the locals that have them. But the short wheelbase are pretty rare over here. Therefore, it's kind of tough getting parts for them too, especially some of the body parts, because they do differ. But luckily, this one's been well taken care of from Japan, and once I got through all the wear items, it really it's really as good as it could possibly be right now. I mean, I wouldn't hesitate taking this car and driving it across country if I needed to, but luckily I don't need to. So yeah, I mean, you know, driving a right-hand drive car in America is not impossible. The Postal Service has been doing it for years. It's not illegal. This car, in order to be imported, must be 25 years or older. Obviously, this one passes that by a couple of years now. This has been in the US probably about 2 or 3 years. I think it was in for a year or so before I bought it. And then I've kind of taken it and made it my own. But I tell you, it's just a lot of fun to jump in and just experience this period of Toyota. With the 3RZ, that 4-cylinder, it's a big 4-cylinder. 2.7 liter is a big 4-cylinder. Typically 4-cylinders, especially in the Honda lineup, max out at, you know, 2 liters or 1.5 liters. They like those small 4-cylinders, and they tend to turbocharge them. LC Engineering does make a supercharger kit for this. It's a low boost kit, and then they have a high boost kit. Now this is like OBD 1.5 or something. There is no plug in the cabin. There's a little diagnostic plug in the engine bay, but it doesn't really tell you much. You know, it's very old school. You can't put a reader on this and, you know, check various functionality. There's some kind of you know, you're looking at a diagnostic light with the check engine light if you have anything that comes up. But since I've owned this, you know, knock on wood, this thing has never left me stranded. It's always given me just optimal running conditions. You know, it never left me anywhere. It kind of lets you know if something's wrong by how it sounds. And that's what I like about all those old Toyotas. I had that, I had an 86 FJ60. You'll also see videos of that previously on my channel. And then that was probably 16 years ago. I had restored an FJ60. And it was the same thing. There were a couple times, I think I had some electrical issues, and I had a couple of people help me push start it and get going, and drove it again another 4 or 5 hours just on the way home. These old Toyotas just, they talk to you, and there's definite, you got to know the personality of each car. They're all different. I've had 3rd gen 4Runners, I've had 5th gen 4Runners. You know, my wife says I change cars more than I change my clothes, and that there's some truth to that. But I've settled into this group of cars for now that really all have a very unique style and personality. This car to me it takes me back to a simpler time. Everything is, you know, kind of push button. There's a tactile feel. There's not a ton of computers. Yes, it has an ECU, but it's all pretty basic. It's just, you know, it's controlling what it needs to control. There's no data logging. There's nothing really happening here that isn't around the operation of the car. There's very minimal electronics in this car compared to what you'll see today on most vehicles, and I love that. I love that. Oh wow, something happened in these. You could isolate pretty much anything going on with this car very quickly. It's kind of a lot. Most people could work on this. Now, I brought this to like an oil change place once, and I swear those guys had a meltdown. They kept on trying to run the VIN, and I don't know if you're familiar, Japanese VINs are, I think, 6 digits or not even, and because they couldn't put it in, even though I told them, hey, just run it as a 98 4Runner, they couldn't figure it out. They wouldn't touch it. And that makes me nervous. So I'm like, we're good. I'll just move on and do my thing. But everything's available. I mean, other than the steering rack, anything 3rd gen 4Runner with the front end and the drivetrain will be covered. Your CV axles are 3rd gen 4Runner. Your shocks, your suspension lift, anything of that nature. Now, Dobbinston does have a procurement or a part number for the Prado specifically, because it is heavier than the 4Runner. Typically where the Prado falls into in the Toyota 4-wheel drive lineup is you have your light duty, which would be your 4Runners, your Tacomas, your Hiluxes or Hilux, depending on how you say it. The Prado is kind of a medium duty. It has a little more stout frame than the 4Runner. It does share some of those components with the 80 series. It has a little beefier axles, but for most of the suspension componentry, it's 3rd gen 4Runner. But this is full-time all-wheel drive, by the way. So it does have a center locking diff. There are models with a rear locker. This one does not. This is the RX. This is kind of the base model. I went and got this center console piece from my Pakistani connection because the stock one only goes down to here, so it really kind of makes a big difference for comfort. But yeah, I mean, this is my 98 Prado. You're going to see a lot more of this. We'll do more drives and get you guys familiar with it. Talk to you soon.